Welcome all of you to this last module of this unique MOOC being organized by School of Science Art University regarding COVID-19, the pandemic. Myself, Professor Dr. Devang Pandya, Deputy Director in School of Pharmacy, RK University, would be talking about exploring the herbal measures in COVID-19. Now, before we begin with the lecture, let us be very clear with our expectations. What we will be talking about and what we will not be talking about in this particular lecture. What we will be talking about? We will be talking about only modern evidence-based utility of four medicinal plants mentioned in Ayurveda. That is turmeric and Trikatu drugs. Now, Trikatu is a very famous Ayurvedic formulation. We are not going to talk about the formulation. We are going to talk about its three ingredients. That is ginger, piper longum, and piper nigrum. So, in short, we'll be talking about modern evidence-based utility of turmeric, ginger, piper longum, and piper nigrum. We won't be talking about anything which is ancient. We won't be talking about anything which has been mentioned in the Ayurvedic text. We will be talking about only modern evidence-based utility in COVID-19 of these four drugs, which has been mentioned by the guidelines of the Ministry of Ayush as a general measure or maybe an immuno-boosting measure or as a prophylactic measure, that is preventing the disease, or symptom handling measure, that is after you acquire the disease, God forbid, or as an add-on measure, that is as an add-on intervention to any of the treatments that you might be undertaking. What we will be talking about? We will be talking about only three main modern evidence-based utility of these medicinal plants and their possibilities against COVID-19. These medicinal plants have a lot of activities. They have a lot of uses. We won't be talking about all those uses. We are focused on COVID-19. So we will be talking about only three activities. That is the antiviral activity of these medicinal plants, because obviously COVID is a viral disease. The immunomodulatory activity of these medicinal plants, because they are very useful for the immunity, and the activity of these medicinal plants on the respiratory tract, because the coronavirus affects the respiratory tract the most. Also, we will be talking about what's in it for you. You might be a biotech personnel or a biochemist. You might be a microbiology student or researcher. You might be a pharmacist or a pharmacologist. What will the lecture bring for you? Is there anything more to explore? That is also what we will talk about at the end of each of these medicinal plants. Now, what we will not talk about, that is also very important to get our expectations right from this lecture. We will not be talking about the Ayush systems and their concepts. We're not going to talk about Ayurveda. We're not going to talk about its concepts like Tridosh. We're not going to talk about those things. We are not going to validate one use or mechanism on the basis of another. What I mean to say is that turmeric may have been found to have very good activity against the hepatitis virus, which affects the liver, right? But we are not going to correlate the activity of turmeric against a virus or against any disease, any other disease, and then try to prove that so it might be effective against coronavirus also. No. We are only going to talk about the actual effect of these four medicinal plants against three of the activities, that is the antiviral activity, immunomodulatory activity, and activity on the respiratory tract. We are not going to talk about any other modern based utility of these plants. There might be many uses of these plants, and many of them have been researched upon in the past decade or so. regarding their modern evidence-based utility. We are not going to talk about any other thing. We are not going to talk about any of the medicinal uses. Ethnomedicine means any of the uses that has been carried, uses of these medicinal plants, which are undertaken by, say, people of some remote areas or some tribal areas or some ethnic groups or by people of some community or even by people in their own homes. We are not going to talk about those things. We are going to talk about only modern evidence-based research. We are not going to talk about non-significant results. We are going to talk about only significant results and significant research. And that too, high impact research in excellent journals, not low impact research. Also, what we will not be talking about is research done by Indians. What I mean to say by this is that we as Indians might have that sort of a bias that because it is Ayurveda and it is our own Ayurveda, we may try to prove that those activities which are mentioned in Ayurveda do exist and do have some actual effect also according to modern science. So, just to remove that regional bias, we are not going to talk about any research carried out by Indians. Most of the things that we'll talk about will be research carried out by foreigners. And we'll see how much even the foreigners are working upon our own medicinal plants. And I must say that we are working very less on our own medicinal plants. So the first drug that we are talking about, the first medicinal plant, that is turmeric. This is the herbarium and this is the actual plant. All of us would have obviously seen turmeric in our kitchens. The vernacular names of turmeric, in Sanskrit it is known as haridra, in Hindi it is known as haldi, in Gujarati it is known as hardar. Its biological source, it consists of pure rhizomes of Curcuma longa. Curing is a process of altering the moisture, that is the humidity and the temperature, and thereby carrying out the drying process. So it consists of pure rhizomes of Curcuma longa, family Zingiberaceae. There are other varieties of turmeric as well. For example, Curcuma aromatica, which is used as a cosmetic. Curcuma amida, which is used as a spice, which we call as mango haldi or amba hardar in Gujarati. Curcuma zivadaria, which is a source of starch. A very popular variety of turmeric, you can say, which is very popular nowadays for its effectiveness, is Lakadong turmeric from Meghalaya. And there are so many participants here from the Northeast. So yes, it is a matter for you. It is a matter for pride for you that there is now a Lakadong turmeric which is getting popularity worldwide. What is the pharmacopoeial presence of turmeric? What is a pharmacopoeia? A pharmacopoeia is it is an official, you can say, a book of published by the government itself, published by its ministries, which consists of detailed information of these medicinal plants, and that detailed information is known as a monograph. So, is turmeric that important that it finds itself in the books, the official publications of the government of India? Yes, turmeric finds its presence in the Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia of India, that is the API, as well as the Indian Pharmacopoeia. So, a very, very important drug. What are the various chemical constituents of turmeric? It mainly consists of the oleoresin class of drugs, that is volatile oil combined with resin. Its main constituent is known as curcuminoids, which is actually a mixture of curcumins 1, 2, and 3 along with resins. So curcuminoids, you might have heard this term often, but it is actually a mixture of constituents. Along with that, there are volatile constituents like gingiberine, which is a sesquiterpene. A terpene is a C5H8 unit, and sesqui means 3. So 3 C5H8 units combined together make gingiberine. which is a volatile oil constituent. Also, there are suspect of being ketones which are present in turmeric, which are known as alpha and aromatic turmerones. One of the issues with turmeric is that its bioavailability is very less, and that is what we come across very often. That the bioavailability of turmeric is very less, and so we need to devise new formulations to increase its bioavailability. But if we look at the way in which our turmeric has been used since thousands of years, we would realize that turmeric and its constituents actually require a lipid vehicle to increase its absorption and bioavailability. What is the meaning of bioavailability? Bioavailability is the amount of the active constituent of the medicine available at the site of action. That is available at where the problem lies. So it is said that the bioavailability of turmeric is very less. However, let us look at some of our own concepts. It might be that even since thousands of years, our people might be knowing that the bioavailability of turmeric might be less. And so a lipid vehicle is to be used to increase its action. And so we have been using turmeric always with milk. We don't mix, there's no tradition of us mixing turmeric with water and drinking. We mix turmeric with milk because milk has lipids, and that is what results in golden milk, which is now becoming a very popular word. Also, in our cooking, we utilize turmeric in our cooking because we use oil in our cooking as well. So again, something is there in our cooking, that is the oil, which increases the absorption of curcumin. That might be the reason why turmeric is so popular in our kitchen. Also, before the marriage function, there is something known as pithi, which is applied on the skin and on the face to increase for the purpose of beautification. Now, pithi is always applied using oil with turmeric. So again, this shows that if the bioavailability has to be increased, there is something where a lipid vehicle is to be used if you want to increase it using turmeric. This is the main chemical constituent of turmeric, the curcumins. There are three main curcumins. What type of research is being done right now by researchers of medicinal chemistry or organic chemistry is how to add functional groups to these structures such that they increase the activity of the constituent. So this is again something which can be explored by all of us. Now the uses of turmeric. Turmeric has been used as a very popular immunomodulator. Let us understand the word immunomodulator. Modulator would mean not only boosting the immunity, not only immunostimulation, it also means reducing the immunity in certain cases. Those cases might be like say during organ transplantation or autoimmune diseases. So immunomodulation includes both increasing as well as decreasing the immunity of the body as per the requirement of the body. Turmeric has also been found to be very useful in cough and bronchitis, the respiratory tract disorders, in liver, it protects the liver, it is a hepatoprotective used in jaundice. It acts against the inflammation, very common uses all of us would be aware of. It is also useful against the bad cholesterol of the body. It is an antiseptic, that is why it has been used since centuries to the wounds which we may have got. And it is also very useful for the skin. And so it is also used for cosmetic purposes. But we are not here to talk about all those variety of uses. We are here to talk about only those activities which are related to COVID-19. So, does turmeric have any sort of antiviral activity as per the modern medical science? Well, there is an enzyme which is known as IMPDH, and it has a rate limiting activity in the synthesis of the viral guanine nucleotides. Curcumin has been found to inhibit this enzyme IMPDH. So it does have some sort of general antiviral activity. But does it have any antiviral activity on the respiratory tract? Does it have any effectivity against viruses which may attack the respiratory tract? Curcuminoids have been found to have strong inhibitory effects on the glutaminases from two influenza viral strains, H1N1 and H9N2. H1N1 is very popularly known as swine flu. Okay, fine. But does curcumin have any advantage over the more popular allopathic options like oseltamivir? Yes. Significant inhibitory activity was observed of curcumin or the curcuminoids against the glutaminases from that mutant of H1N1, that is H274Y, which is resistant to even oseltamivir. Okay. Significant activity of curcumin was also found to be had against respiratory viruses assessed by the MTT test. It's a very popular test for assessing the activity against the respiratory viruses. And those viruses are parainfluenza virus 3 and respiratory syncytial virus, that is RS3. Also, significant activity of curcumin was found against influenza viruses ERH, H1N1 and H6N1 to the extent that more than 90% of reduction in the virus series was observed. Again, does curcumin in these activities have any advantage over the allopathic option amantadine? Yes, viruses develop resistance against amantadine, but not against curcumin. Now, immunomodulatory activity. See, we cannot say that some drug is an immunomodulator just because it makes us feel good. We can't say that some medicine is an immunomodulator because it has been mentioned in our ancient Ayurvedic texts, or that because it has been used by our forefathers. We can't say that something is an immunomodulator because I haven't fallen sick in the last 6 months. If we are talking about immunomodulatory activity according to modern science, it should be that medicine should be able to regulate some of the parameters of the immune system, like regulation of T cells, B cells. This is very common knowledge for any of the student of microbiology, biotech, or pharmacy. So I won't go into detail into explaining some of the things. But if you want to exert a proper immunomodulatory effect, the drug has to inhibit production of certain cytokines, inhibit the dimerization of toll-like receptors. Toll-like receptors are like watchtowers. They will look from far that some virus is approaching, and they will inform inside, and the immune processes will begin. What viral particles would do is they would cause the dimerization of these toll-like receptors and make them ineffective. Now, if some medicine is to have an immunomodulatory activity, it should be inhibiting the dimerization of these toll-like receptors. And a good immunomodulator should be able to regulate, rather suppress the nuclear factor kappa B if it has to have a good immunoboosting activity. Curcumin has been found to be effective in all of our work. Now, this is a very good review article. It is by an Indian, but it is actually a review article. and there is a lot of good research that is being covered in this article regarding turmeric. So I would recommend that to you. Again, if a medicine is having a good immunomodulatory activity, or rather an immunoboosting activity, it should increase the total WBC count, it should increase the circulating antibodies, it should increase the plaque-forming cells of the spleen, it should increase the bone marrow cellularity, the alpha SS positive cells, and increase the phagocytosis. Curcumin has been found to be effective in all of these as well. Right. But there are non-specific host response parameters as well. Non-specific means they are not specific for any particular host. They are the general response parameters like morphological alteration, phagocytosis, that is the eating of the virus or its particles, nitric oxide release, release of myeloperoxidase. Nitric oxide release would cause vasodilation, which is good for your circulatory system. Myeloperoxidase release would fight against the free radicals which are harmful for your body, and intracellular killing capacity of the macrophages. So these are the non-specific host response parameters. Turmeric has been found to be effective in all of them. When I talk about turmeric, I am talking about the whole drug, that is the turmeric itself, not curcumin or any of its constituents. Now, activity on the respiratory tract. Is there any sort of clinical trials which has been done at all on the respiratory tract using turmeric? Yes. Respiratory tract infections were reduced in children receiving lactoferrin and curcumin. Lactoferrin is a milk protein. So again, there is this relation between milk and turmeric. And that was observed because of skewing of the CD8 plus T lymphocytes maturation, augmentation, that is the increase of the toll-like receptors, and the reduction of interleukin 10. So this is the activity of turmeric on the respiratory tract. So what's in it for you to explore further? Phytoconstituents, very, very important. A lot of work has been done on curcumins, on the curcuminoids, but termerones are the phytoconstituents which are now being worked upon by the scientists. So further exploration on termerones can be done. Also, semi-synthetic derivatives. What can be the way in which the activity of those particular phytoconstituents of turmeric can be increased by making some changes in the functional groups of their structure? That would be semi-synthetic derivatives. Mechanisms of action of turmeric can be explored further. If you are a microbiologist or a biotechnologist or a biochemist, this is something that you can really pursue, even a pharmacologist. Work on receptors, metabolites, intermediates of turmeric. A very important thing that can be done by you, genome sequencing. See, one of the biggest issues nowadays in the usage of medicinal plants is the problem of its correct authentication. If you come across any medicinal plant, is it actually that species? If somebody gives you a powder having turmeric, does it have turmeric only or does it have other adulterants? Right. So authentication, adulteration, these are the various issues which are plaguing Ayurveda and the Ayush products right now. And there are ways in which other tests can be manipulated. Even HPTLC, HPLC, any of the chemicals can be added separately, and you may get the fingerprints of those chromatographic techniques resembling turmeric. However, there might be adulteration which is there in turmeric. So one of the short ways of concluding regarding the authenticity of a medicinal plant is genome sequencing. and that is what microbiologists and biotechnologists can do. It will also help you in differentiating the various varieties of turmeric, just as we mentioned in the beginning. There is Curcuma amida, Curcuma theodoria. So, not only Curcuma longa, you can differentiate Curcuma longa from these varieties, and you can detect adulteration and help in a very, very important point, that is standardization of Ayush products. Because without standardization, it is very difficult to convince even the Indian public right now, forget about the non-Indian people, regarding the effectivity of the Ayurvedic medicinal plants. So great service can be done by yourself. You can make biotech products. There are so many animal biotech products which are there. Why not plant biotech products? Why not biotech products about turmeric, which are in such a way that it will increase the effectiveness of turmeric. It will help in the reduction of the dose of turmeric. And biotech agri solutions. Turmeric is plagued with a particular disease, that is the turmeric rot, and it is said that the farmers lose up to even 20% of the yield if there is such a rot. And because the turmeric rhizomes grow underground, it is very difficult for insecticides and pesticides to penetrate and give the protection to the turmeric. So, can you make biotech agri solutions, just like there was BT brinjal? These are various things that can be explored further regarding turmeric. Now we move on to the second medicinal plant, that is ginger. This is the herbarium photograph of ginger. This is the actual medicinal plant. Again, ginger, a very prominent member of our kitchen. Ginger is known as ardra, adrak. In Gujarati, if fresh, it is known as adu. If dried, it is known as soot. It is also known as suti in Sanskrit, in Ayurveda. Ginger consists of the rhizomes of Zingiber officinale, belonging again to the family Zingiberaceae. There are various species or varieties of ginger as well, like Cochin ginger, Jamaican ginger, and African ginger. Ginger again is a very important drug which has pharmacopoeia presence. It is there as an official monograph in Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia of India as well as the Indian Pharmacopoeia. Ginger also consists of oleoresins as the main class of chemical constituents. So that is volatile oil plus resins. Terpenes like gingiberine, ketones like gingiberone, susceptible alcohols like gingiberol, and again the alcohols like gingerol. These are the main chemical constituents of ginger, which bring about its various effects and activities. This is the structure of gingiberine and this of gingerol. Again, the students belonging to medicinal chemistry or organic chemistry can think about making semi-synthetic derivatives of these chemical constituents. Can there be particular functional groups which can be added on these rings, which may increase the activity of these phytoconstituents? There are various uses of ginger as well. It is a very powerful immunomodulator, very popular in respiratory tract disorders like cold, cough, sore throat, in gastrointestinal disorders like it is a good digestive, carminative, that is it expels gas. It is an antiemetic, that is it prevents vomiting. It is used in nausea. It is very good for the CNS. It acts as a stimulant, anxiolytic, that is it reduces anxiety, reduces stress, reduces inflammation, also useful in arthritis. But again, we are focusing only on three aspects where it can have any sort of connection with its effectiveness against COVID-19. So does ginger have any sort of activity against the viruses which affect the respiratory tract? See, when we are talking about the respiratory tract, there are two popular cell lines which mimic the actual respiratory tract. of the humans. And therefore, we can say that okay, any of the drug can be effective against the viruses of those drugs. HEP2 is the upper respiratory tract cell line, and A549 is the lower respiratory tract cell line. So, if any of the drug, if it is effective against both these cell lines of the respiratory tract, only then we can say that it might be effective possibly against COVID-19. Fresh ginger has been shown to have significant antiviral activity against the human respiratory syncytial virus, that is HRSV, on both these respiratory tracts, the upper respiratory tract as well as the lower respiratory tract cell lines. Also, fresh ginger is also said to have, rather it has been researched to have very good activity against the virus of the nose. So these things combined can give us an idea that it might be having some sort of a very effective activity against respiratory tract viruses. Again, if we are talking about the activity of any medicine against the viruses of the respiratory tract, there has to be some sort of mechanism also. Now, suppose there is a thief who wants to steal a gold chain from your house. What are the initial steps that thief has to do? The first thing that he needs to do is attachment. That is, the thief has to come to your house. He has to attach himself, do something with the locks, do something with the windows or the doors, right? When a virus attacks, it will cause this attachment using G protein. And when the thief gets inside your house, the other thing that he needs to do is have a look around. He needs to get inside. So for a virus to be to have an effect on your body, it has to undergo internalization. That is, it has to get inside of your membranes, and that it does with the help of its F protein. Fresh ginger has been found to be effective in both these proteins. It inhibits both the G protein as well as the F protein, and thereby inhibits the initial steps itself of the human respiratory syncytial virus. Again, does ginger have any sort of immunomodulatory activity? So when we talk about immunomodulation, we are talking about several parameters like regulation of the T helper cells, Th1 and Th2, which are against the intracellular parasites and the extracellular parasites and other T helper cells as well as the T regulatory cells. When we are talking about immunomodulation, there has to be a regulation of the B cell related immune responses, as well as modulation of the macrophages related responses, as well as modulation of the pro as well as anti-inflammatory cytokines. So if there is an autoimmune disease, there has to be an action against the pro-inflammatory cytokines. Whereas if you want immunity, there has to be a mechanism by which the activity of the cytokines can be increased so as to have some sort of effectiveness against the viral disease. And there has to be downregulation of the arachidonic acid-derived mediators, which are mediators related to the pain pathway. Ginger has been found to have an effect in all these activities of immunomodulation. Again, many other parameters are there. A good immunomodulator should be able to interfere with the toll-like receptors, rather prevents its dimerization. It should be able to suppress the inflammasomes. It should have a down regulation of the oxidative stress so as to prevent the harm to your body. by the radicals. It should be able to reduce the expression of adhesion molecules, and it should cause the downregulation of the expression of chemokines, which may cause chemotaxis. So these are again the various parameters of modern science for immunomodulation. Ginger has been found to be effective in all of these too. Does ginger have any sort of activity on the respiratory tract? Yes, randomized clinical trials have been conducted where it was found that the patients fed with a diet enriched with ginger had significant lower serum levels of interleukins and TNF alpha, that is the tumor necrosis factor alpha, higher level of the antioxidant RBC glutathione, improvement in oxygenation of the patient, decrease in the use of mechanical ventilation for the patient. So the patient can breathe by himself, and decrease the length of the ICU stay of the patient. So these are some of the modern research that has been carried out on ginger. And all of these hint somewhere at its utility against COVID-19. Again, there is no medicine for COVID-19 right now. So no one can say that ginger is 100% effective against COVID-19. But this sort of research, specific research has been done, which can give a whole lot of idea about how actually ginger is effective in the terms of current medical science. What's in it for you to explore further in ginger? Again, phytoconstituents. I mentioned many of the phytoconstituents earlier, but shogawan is right now one of the constituents which is being worked upon and for its various activities. Also, semi-synthetic products of the various constituents of ginger can be made in the labs. Mechanisms of action of ginger can also be studied, and so can be its receptors, metabolites, and intermediates. Genome sequencing of ginger, that is Zingiber officinale, has been done, but genome sequencing of its varieties can be done so that the various species can be differentiated from each other and adulteration can be stopped and standardization of Irish products can be ensured. Make biotech products of ginger as well. Again, ginger has the same sort of problem as turmeric. It catches a disease which destroys its rhizomes, and that is a rot which is again very harmful and reduces the yield of ginger. So something can be done about bringing about any biotic agri solutions for ginger, which may help the farmers in its more effective cultivation. And now we move to the next two drugs, which we will combine to call as piper, because it is long pepper, that is Piper longum, and black pepper, that is Piper nigrum. So both these drugs we will cover together because they belong to the same genus. This is the long pepper, Piper longum. This is Piper nigrum. And these are the fruit drugs which are used. The fruit drugs means the parts of the medicinal plant which are actually supposed to be used. Long pepper is also known as pipli in Sanskrit. In Gujarati it is known as pipar. Black pepper is known as marich in Sanskrit. In Hindi it is known as kale mirch. In Gujarati it is known as kalamari. The biological source of long pepper, it consists of dried fruits of Piper longum. However, its roots, which are known as pipli, in Gujarati they are known as ganthoda, they are also very, very effective, and they also find official usage in the Ayurvedic texts. So long pepper actually consists of the dried roots of Piper longum, but its roots are also used. And black pepper consists of the dried fruits of Piper nigrum. Now in the market you may come across something which is known as white pepper. White pepper is nothing but black pepper from which the outer covering, that is the pericarp, has been removed. So it is It consists of the dried fruits of Piper nigrum, from which the outer pericarp has been removed, and that is why the inner entire matter is white, and that is why it is known as white pepper. It belongs to both these species belong to the family Piperaceae, and they find pharmacopoeial presence as well. Which are the various chemical constituents of piper? The main alcohol, which is considered to be a wonder molecule right now, is piperin, and a lot of work is being done on piperin, as well as there are other alcohols as well, which are very important. That is javicin and piperlongumine. Piperlongumine being specific to piperlongum. There are volatile oils like terpenes, like pinene and caryophyllene, acids like piperinic acid. A good amount of work is being done on piperinic acid as well right now. Long chain isobutyl amides like longamide, oxygenated cyclohexanes like piperenol A and D. But the wonder molecule, as I said, is piperin. And many things can be done regarding its structure. Can there be any semi-synthetic derivative? Can there be any functional group which can be attached, which can enhance the activity of piperin? The piper species, that is Piperlongum as well as Piper nigrum, are used since centuries in India in the respiratory tract disorders like asthma, cough, or to increase the respiration. In the GIT disorders like dysentery, digestive, and a carminative, that is, it expels the gases. It has a good effect on the CNS as well. It has a stimulant effect as well as a sedative effect whenever required in conditions like insomnia as well as epilepsy. But its most important use, which is being worked upon right now, is its use as a bioavailability enhancer. We looked while having a look at turmeric, that turmeric is having a problem with its bioavailability. What is the meaning of bioavailability? Bioavailability is the amount of the active constituent of that medicine which is available at the site of action. That is, wherever it is required in the body. So turmeric has an issue with low bioavailability, whereas piper is considered to be a bioavailability enhancer. That is, it increases the amount of active constituent which is supposed to reach at the site of action. So not only can the Piperlongum and Piper nigrum increase the effectivity of other medicinal plants, but it can also help in the reduction of the doses of those medicinal plants because it increases the bioavailability. So more amount of the drug would be reaching the site of action. And if more amount of drug would be reaching the site of action, you can reduce the dose of those drugs. And that is why piperin is being worked upon not only by herbal researchers, but also by the researchers of allopathic medicine. That, in which ways can piperin help in the bioavailability enhancement? Immunomodulatory activity. There are many parameters of the immunomodulation. Total, or rather, if we talk about immunoboosting, the total WBC should be increased. There should be an increase in total antibody production, as well as increase in the bone marrow cellularity, as well as increase in the alpha esterase positive cells. Piperlongum as the entire fruit drug, as well as piperin, both have been found to be effective against all of these. The extracts of Piperlongum have also been found to be effective. Again, there are the parameters like interleukin 6 and the tumor necrosis factor alpha, and both of these need to be reduced if you are supposed to have that activity. And the immunomodulatory activity. It also has an effect against the lymphocytes CD4 plus and CD8 plus T cells. It is also effective against the mitogen-induced human peripheral BMC proliferation, These parameters are those which are related with cancer. So it gives a hint of something like that as well. And it also has an effect on the mRNA transcripts of the interleukins, TNF alpha, piperlongum, as well as piperinic acid have both found to decrease all of the above and thereby help in immunomodulation. Is there any activity of the piper on the respiratory tract? Anything that has clinical trials? Yes. Clinical studies have been performed where piper longum has been found to be effective in children with bronchial asthma by decreasing its severity of attacks. And preclinical studies have also been done on piper longum in bronchial asthma, where it has been found to decrease the rate as well as amplitude of respiration during the attack, as well as non-specifically block acetylcholine, histamine, as well as 5-hydroxytryptamine induced spasms. So this shows the activity of piperlongum in the respiratory tract. And what's needed for you to explore? Bioavailability enhancement. As I said, everybody is working on it, and there can be mechanisms which can be studied. How the piperlongum and pipernigram can be utilized so as to enhance the bioavailability, which will also help in growth reduction. If you look at the Ayurvedic formulations, you will find that in a majority of the formulations, piperlongum or pipernigram, they are present. So that has to do something with dose reduction. That has got to do something with its bioavailability enhancement. Phytoconstituents like piperinic acid as well as piperlongumine, they are being researched upon right now. Semi-synthetic derivatives of these constituents can also be made. Mechanisms of action can be studied, receptors, metabolites, and intermediates can be studied. Genome sequencing of both piperlongum as well as pipernigram can be carried out, and biotech products can be made from them as well. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and I hope this particular lecture would give you a rational point of view, and it would give you a sort of self-confidence, when we are talking about our own Ayush systems and our own immune medicine plants. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Thank you all of you. All the best for the future.